Today I'm going to talk about books. Why? Well, I wrote one, which you guys may or may not know, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. I'll keep you guys posted on the date. But because I don't have any formal education, and because I'm part owner in 4 different academies around the world of Alliance Jiu-Jitsu, and also part owner with the founders of Alliance Jiu-Jitsu, I think it's important for me to tell my story as to how I got here, which is all through reading. So today is going to be a review of my favorite books. I think I picked out about 6 or 7. And I just hope you guys get a lot out of this video, because the goal of today is really to show you guys that you don't have to have a formal education to get to the places you actually want to go. And I hope you guys like today's video. So the first book I want to talk about today that I think is considered to be probably the most gifted book I've ever given out is The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. This book to me is, as my friends know, I say it's like my Bible, you know. Even though the first time I read the book, it was an important book for me to understand about how to turn trials into triumph, it wasn't until many years later where the book had more relevancy to me. And I probably read this book over 20 times. I've gifted this book about 70 to maybe 80 times to people around the gyms here in San Diego, to people all around the world. I've actually given it out in multiple languages as well. But essentially, you know, this book has been revered by some of the biggest names in sports and education as a book that they've also given out to their teams, both in the corporate world and sports world. And the biggest lesson I would take away from The Obstacle is the Way is exactly the title, which is, again, the obstacle of, I don't want to go this route, but oftentimes that is the route you have to go in order to find your way, you know. And so the path gets created as you go down the path. And I think that the stories in this book by Ryan Holiday, he really brings forward a lot of the stoicism of the Marcus Aurelius times to today's modern stories, everything from Martin Luther King Jr. to Teddy Roosevelt. Again, this book, without getting too deep into it, is going to be probably a great place to start to understand that really things that are going on in your life are going to have to be things that you take responsibility for, and be able to turn those things around to actually make it to something where it becomes a positive in your life. One example of The Obstacle is the Way for me was, I like to bring it back to jiu-jitsu, you know, and the fact that as a fresh white belt, at any belt level really, but especially a fresh white belt, not wanting to go to class if there was another tough white belt in the class, you know, and thinking like, I just want to take the easy way out, or I want to take the easy roll today. I don't want to do that hard thing, you know, and whether it's rolling with an opponent that you know is going to beat you up, or I don't want to do that hard thing of doing a really hard workout or making that difficult phone call. Oftentimes, once you do those things, you realize that it was good for you, you know, and so the obstacle being the way is really that there's no better way to say it, but it's that thing you know you should do. You know, and oftentimes, like I say, it's the difficult thing. And every time I would go and even get my butt kicked as a white belt by other tough guys or girls, I always walked out of that class saying, I'm glad I didn't take the easy road. You know, I'm glad that I challenged myself. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about, is challenging yourself and making sure that, again, those obstacles don't turn you into someone who's meek, but rather turning you into somebody who looks for obstacles, seeks out challenges to improve. Because like I always say, there is no purgatory. You're either growing or you're dying, you know, and there really is nothing in between. Another book that a little under the radar, maybe for some of you tuning into my channel anyway, or my page, probably thinking that I'm going to talk about Roger Gracie and Fabio Gurgel all day, but that's not the case. So we're going to get a little sensitive for this book. This is a book by young Pueblo. The title of the book is Lighter. I think this is his second book of his 3-book series. And I love this book for the simple reason that even though I've been in therapy for several years, this book kind of like encompasses everything in one book, everything that I've learned, you know. And so I think that from just an emotional intelligence standpoint, that Lighter is a great book for those maybe going through kind of some turmoil in your life, whether it's relationships or just personal personal development challenges. It's great for all ages. I think it's never too late to learn kind of more about yourself. And I feel like this book by young Pueblo is one of the best books in terms of taking responsibility for how you feel. I think with that coincides with what I first talked about in the video today, which is how I got to where I wanted to be. A lot of it has to do with me challenging the emotions that I thought I felt and actually making sure that those emotions were not going to control me. You know, and so again, I feel that this book was an important recent reading. I just read this book maybe a year ago, and I wish I would have read it sooner. So super highly recommended. Lighter by young Pueblo. Tim Ferriss, quick shout out to you, man. Thank you so much for writing this book. This book is probably going to be the launch pad of me knowing how to put my thoughts into what I wanted out of my life into words. So I didn't really feel college was the route for me. I always thought entrepreneurship and leveraging my time was the way to go. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't really know how to put my thoughts onto paper, and you put everything pretty much in a book. And so 4-hour work week, for those of you guys that are watching today's video, this does not mean you only work 4 hours. It's so funny, when I used to give this book out, people would think like, oh yeah, sure, why not just work 2 hours? Like, the idea of this book is not just to work 4 hours. The idea of this book is how to leverage your time. And the biggest lesson I got from this book was how to be able to take your skill set and know that you can trade someone else's skill set for maybe a little bit better substitute for your time. So for example, just because that I can do paperwork in my company doesn't mean that I should necessarily be doing it, because that means now that I can't do what I'm good at, which is, let's say, sales. So instead of me doing the sales, the paperwork, the accounting, and everything else, you have to find out ways to outsource your time. And so by outsourcing your time, whether it's a virtual assistant that he talks about, this is many years ago. I think this book was written 2009. Back when internet wasn't even as popular as it is today, he was talking about virtual assistants and outsourcing time online. He was talking about traveling the world for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to being stuck in the mindset of you have to have this super luxury apartment in the US that you could barely afford and thinking that you can't travel. This book really, again, put on the map the idea that you could travel on a budget, still leverage your time, create a business, have other people work in your absence, and pay them enough to have that spread. So again, great book. Probably, again, the springboard to my success was from this book, 4-Hour Workweek. Unfortunately, I don't have the cover for this book, but this is maybe, if I had to recommend one book and one book only, and you can never read another book again, this would be it. This is Never Split the Difference by Voss. He's a FBI negotiator, retired FBI negotiator. This book was recommended to me by a good friend of mine who suggested I read it. I picked this book up about 6 years ago. I read this book in about 2018, and then I started Baja Fulfillment shortly after that. This book helped me negotiate every single important financial decision in my life, including the most recent financial success I had, which was selling one of my companies for over 8 figures. Without this book, that would not have happened. That is for a fact. If I was to condense what my time was worth when reading this book, it's probably worth millions of dollars. But the reason why I suggest this book as being like the most important book you'll ever read if you only picked one book up is because it's a master communicator book. And it masters the communication of you and other people. It talks about empathy, it talks about listening, it talks about like how to get your point across, it talks about patience, it talks about different methods of communicating. Sales and negotiating is not a tactic to get people to do what you want them to do. That is called manipulation. This is a book to get people to do what they want to do. I think there's a big difference between the two. And again, sales and negotiating has nothing to do with manipulating anybody. It has a lot to do with how to communicate with somebody so you both can come to the right agreement that benefits both parties. The way that I actually read books, oftentimes I kind of, what they call this, like, I don't know, rabbit ear, pages, circled, chapters, underline. I make sure that there's highlights, there's notes. I go back and I read those. And this book, to my point, has a lot of those. You can see in the little edges, there's a lot of little bends. So I might as well read the whole damn book again, is what this one tells me. And so a lot of my favorite books have those. If there's one book that you could read and never read another book in your life, this would be it. So another mention from Mr. Tim Ferriss, the OG originator of the interviewing. In this case, it says the tactics, routines, habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers. And this book is Tools of Titans. And this actually is the book that I modeled my book after, which, for those of you that don't know, Jiu-Jitsu Bravehearts, coming out soon. Date, who knows, but it'll be out. Keep up with the content to see when we're actually going to release the damn book, but it is coming out, I promise. But Tools of Titans was very much so modeled. I modeled my book after this book. The reason why I like Tools of Titans is because it's a book about 100 other people, not necessarily just about Tim Ferriss's experiences. And I like that. So again, it's tactics, routines, habits of billionaires, icons, and world-class performers, athletes, coaches, etc. And so I want to just read specifically one excerpt here from Coach Summer. And so what happened was that Tim sent him videos every week to his coach, Coach Summer, and was just expressing in these emails, in these Dropbox links as well, just how he was getting frustrated about his progress. And Coach Summer wrote him back a letter, and it's called The Single Decision. And I think this is something that I need to get back to, and I think that for those of you listening today and watching this video, super, super important. Hi, Tim. Patience. Far too soon to expect strength improvements. Strength improvements for a movement like this take a minimum of 6 weeks. Any perceived improvements prior to that are simply the result of improved synaptic facilitation. In plain English, the central nervous system simply became more efficient at the particular movement with practice. This is, however, not to be confused with actual strength gains. Dealing with temporary frustration of not making progress is an integral part of the path towards excellence. In fact, it is essential and something that every single elite athlete has to learn to deal with. If the pursuit of excellence was easy, everyone would do it. In fact, the impatience in dealing with frustration is the primary reason that most people fail to achieve their goals. Unreasonable expectations, time-wise, resulting in an unnecessary frustration due to perceived feeling of failure. Achieving the extraordinary is not a linear process. The secret is to show up, do the work, and go home. A blue-collar work ethic married to indomitable will. It is literally that simple. Nothing interferes. Nothing can sway you from your purpose. Once the decision is made, simply refuse to budge, refuse to compromise. And accept that the quality long-term results require quality long-term focus. No motion, no drama, no beating yourself up over the small bumps in the road. Learn to enjoy and appreciate the process. This is especially important because you're going to spend far more time on the actual journey than with all those 2 brief moments of triumph at the end. Certainly celebrate the moments of triumph when they occur. More importantly, learn from the defeats when they happen. In fact, if you are not encountering defeat on a fairly regular basis, you are not trying hard enough. And absolutely refuse to accept less than your best. Throw out this timeline. It takes what it takes. And here's the part I want to highlight. If the commitment is to a long-term goal and not to a series of smaller intermediate goals, then only one decision needs to be made and adhered to. Clear, simple, straightforward. It's much easier to maintain than having to make a small decision after small decision to stay the course when dealing with each step along the way. This provides far too many opportunities to inadvertently drift from your chosen goal. The single decision is one of the most powerful tools in the toolbox. You can see I highlighted that entire page. Looks like I got some chocolate or something here. But there's that last part is also in bold, underlined, and got a little smiley face. That particular excerpt in this big fat book is probably the single most, I would say, like mantra that I try to have. Most people do quit because things get tough, and I talk about this all the time, is that you have to have some resolve or understand and know that this is just part of the game. I'm going to lose. I'm going to get submitted. I'm going to have a bad business day, a bad business week, maybe even a bad business year. If the decision is to have freedom, or the decision is to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, or the decision is to just be healthier, so what if you have a bad day eating, training, business-wise? You've already made the decision, so don't let that distract you from the goal. By being committed to the thing, you will inadvertently just be better by doing it over and over and over and over. once you make a decision, you stick to it, and just know that the hard times are part of it. I think that coincides with The Obstacle is the Way, which is one of the first books I recommended, but I just love that. And again, there's so many more stories in this book. There's over 100 different stories from these different folks from around the world that Tim chose to interview, and I really do cherish this book. So I wouldn't be doing myself any favors if I didn't at least recommend my book too, right? So Jiu-Jitsu Bravehearts, 5.5 years now of working on this book, interviewing all the top jiu-jitsu athletes, a couple of celebrities as well, Jocko, Willink, Aubrey Marcus, Russell Brand, Alex Atala, famous chef in Sao Paulo, Brazil, also a black belt in jiu-jitsu, by the way. And again, for those of you that don't know about this book, it's something that I put my heart and soul into, and a lot of money. And all the proceeds are going to be going to 2 different charities. Check those out in the links below in the videos. But there's over 20 profiles, everyone from Roger Gracie, Gordon Ryan, Michael Lange, again, Aubrey Marcus, Marcelo Garcia, Fabio Gugel, Kira Gracie, Felipe Pena, Braulio Estima, just to name a few. And so this book, I tried to take the lessons I've had from my life, the lessons from those folks' lives, and put it into a book that uses jiu-jitsu to tell a story. Not only part of my story, but also the story of these different athletes' lives, of how they've used all the same concepts that I just showed you guys today in these different books in different ways to improve their life. And so this is kind of my interpretation of everything that I've read up to this point, and everything I've learned. And so if there's one book I'd recommend, this would also be one. Hey guys, another book I want to tell you about that changed my life in terms of taking responsibility for myself, not only individual, but as a leader, is a book by Jocko Willink, and it's actually in my Kindle. I don't have the hard copy in front of me. It's called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. So the reason why that book is so important to me in particular is because not only did I love the book and it teach me a lot about being a better leader, which I still need, still am trying to be better at, is the fact that it led me to his seminar, which then led to me writing my book. That's why I, as much as I hate reading, just to be also very clear about something, I didn't read my first book until I think I was 20 years old. I didn't read a single book in high school, middle school. All the books that they used to make us read, I never read them. But I will tell you that it is like the thing that changed my life. And the book led to me, again, going to one of his events, which led to me having the idea about Jiu-Jitsu Bravehearts, which then allowed me to meet all these great people in the book, and including Jocko himself. So again, it comes full circle to opening a book, picking up a book, just trying it out can change the trajectory of your life, And so I think that my other message about today's sharing with you about all these different books is like what they've led to. There's been a flywheel of information that I've gotten back from it, a flywheel of actions I've taken because of it. I can definitely say, look you guys in the eye today and say that if I had not picked up any of these books, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so I cannot stress to you enough that if you don't know where to start, just start by picking up one of these books, and you just don't know where it will lead. Hey guys, I hope you guys liked today's video. As you know, that I don't offer anything for sale. There's no course to buy. There's no, you don't even have to give me your email or anything like that. But it would be important to me if you would share this with a friend, show someone else that may just be starting their jiu-jitsu journey, their entrepreneurial journey. My goal with this channel and with this page is really to give you guys as much information that I can that I think would be helpful from at least a high level, and sprinkle in some detailed videos as to how I have, I guess, crafted my life up to this point. And again, the intention is to share this with as many people as I possibly can, without any need from anything back from you guys other than just to share it. So I really appreciate it. And if there's something you guys want me to talk about that I haven't yet, please comment, send me a message, let me know that, hey, you want to learn more about real estate I'm developing in Montana, you want me to talk more about how to exit a company, you want me to talk about how to open a gym, how to teach jiu-jitsu, how to train. Like I'm all ears to hear what you guys want to listen to and hear more about. And I'm looking forward to making more videos. So thanks again. Hopefully you guys will share this.